Tuesday saw the very first college football playoff rankings release of the year. Oregon and Ohio State ranked, not seeded, but ranked as the top two teams in the country by the College Football Playoff Committee. Penn State comes in at number 6. Indiana cracks the top 8. Dave Revson has more with a special guest.
And we are joined now, as we are every week, by Fox Sports' lead game analyst, Joel Klatt. Joel, let's start with the college football playoff rankings, which came out, of course, on Tuesday night. I gathered from your social media that you feel the same way I do about Indiana, that they were not treated fairly by this committee. Explain your rationale.
Well, I mean, it's such clear brand bias. There's no other way around it. I know because I saw with my own eyes last year in the first committee rankings when this committee ranked Michigan and Georgia at 2 and 3, and their resumes were identical to this Indiana team this year. Both of those teams last year, Michigan and Georgia, had strength of schedules in the 100s. Both of those teams were winning games handily. Georgia by an average of 25, Michigan by an average of about 34 last year. At this point in the season, neither of them had wins over top 20 opponents. The resume is exactly the same. Right now, Indiana is winning games by an average of 32 points. 32, Rev. They've won every game by at least 14. They're the most consistent team in the country in that they have not thrown out a poor performance this year. If they had any other brand on the side of their helmet, they'd be ranked at worst 4 in the country. So this isn't even just like a spot or 2. I think that they should be all the way up into the top 4 if this committee was actually being consistent with their past performance.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Literally said the exact same thing on our show yesterday. I agree verbatim with everything you said. They will have a chance on the field. I mean, I guess if there is the brand bias, I mean, they're playing Michigan this week. Yeah. So if they beat Michigan handily, perhaps that helps them a little bit in the eyes of the committee, and then obviously the game against Ohio State. Let's talk about the Buckeyes.
And I just want to add one more point to this, which I think is important, and it gives context to everything that we're saying, because I don't want to just scream about this in a vacuum. Here's the reason that I think it's important is because after you get past the 6th team or maybe even 5th team in the rankings, what you're doing is paving a path for the future of the season. You're paving a path for teams to be able to lose and still get in, or lose and be on the bubble. And so right now, what the committee is telling us is that Indiana can't lose another game, or else they're going to be on the fringe of getting into this playoff. So what they're telling me is an 11-1 Indiana might have trouble winning an argument against a 10-2 SEC team, or a 10-2, you name the team at that point. That's why it's important. So it's not just we're clamoring because we don't think this is right in the first iteration and this will all iron itself out. It will iron itself out, but that path that it takes to do so is what's important. And these rankings, the first iteration, pave that path towards what we'll see at the end of the year.
Agree with you wholeheartedly. Let's talk about Ohio State. What do you think of them as number 2, whereas the AP obviously had Georgia ahead of Ohio State? Now the rankings have Ohio State ahead of Georgia.
Yeah, I think they could be, 2A and 2B, so to me, I really love those teams, both of them. And I think that they've shown flaws at times during the course of the year. It just so happens that I'm coming off of a game that I sat in the booth and I watched emphatically Ohio State answer the question of the offensive line. We've talked about it, Rev, and let's just face it. This team we thought was a top 2 team coming into the season. And they laid an egg a little bit against Oregon, in particular on the defensive side, and they got their left tackle hurt. Their defense has fixed their issues. They've given up only 1 touchdown in the last 2 games, and then all of a sudden the run game went away because of these offensive line issues. They moved Donovan Jackson out. They put Carson Hinsman into that left guard spot, and all of a sudden they were dominant up front against Penn State. So to me, I like Ohio State at 2, and the reason is because they have answered the questions that have been presented based on their previous performances, and they've answered them in a very positive fashion over the last couple of weeks.
Where does Penn State go from here?
Well, this is a frustrating deal for the Penn State fans and I'm sure anybody involved with that program, because what it suggests is that everything is the same as what we've seen the previous seasons. Rev, we have seen Penn State beat everybody except for Michigan and Ohio State. We've seen them struggle, whether it was in the physical mindset against Michigan or in the skill mindset against Ohio State in previous years. And then all of a sudden, Ohio State turns into the mauler. And they actually did to Penn State what Michigan has done in the previous years. We've seen their offense struggle and not be able to score legitimate touchdowns against Ohio State last year until garbage time, and now this year, really at all. They didn't score an offensive touchdown. And the reason, because they didn't feature their best players. And guess what happens? They've got 5 snaps inside of the 5-yard line on Saturday, and Tyler Warren and Nick Singleton don't touch the ball once in those 5 snaps. So the continuation of the same struggles is why I think this fan base is so frustrated, and they're going to have another chance. I think they get in at 11-1. I do believe that they'll win the rest of their games. I do believe that they're going to have a chance to host a playoff game, and it comes down to this. Can they fix those same issues that we've seen over the last 3 years in order to try to get that playoff win? Because I think that playoff win would be the only reason why a Penn State fan would think to themselves, this has been a successful year.
The beauty of this new system, as you allude to there, Joel, is you do get another chance, or certainly the highest profile teams will get another chance, and Penn State will get that. We get another chance to see the Big Noon crew. You guys have Purdue and Ohio State this week. Look forward to the call and look forward to our conversation next week and every week. Thanks, Joel.
Yeah, you bet. I'm just renting out Ryan Day's guest house at this point, just in Columbus the rest of the season.
You know the airport well.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Joel.